have a good meeting today planned where we're going to hear from 3 of the jurisdictions about updates on their individual plans and an opportunity for us to engage in some question and answer that perhaps will allow us to understand even better what those project lists are and what their other priorities might be within those jurisdictions. So without further ado, let's move in. Since we have a quorum, let us go to our item 2, which is approval of the minutes. And if there's anyone who has any corrections or modifications, please let us know. All right, hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chair, this is Ted Maxwell. I move to approve the minutes as written.
Very good, thank you, Ted.
Mr. Chair, this is Jamie Colley. I'll second that.
Very good, thank you, Jamie. All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No, I don't hear any. All right, we'll move into our next item on the agenda, which is the report on any submitted public comments. And I apologize, but I was given a copy of one of those submitted items and have it here in my email and somehow misplaced it. Here it is. Very good. All right, we have received a comment that pertains to today's agenda, and I'm going to quickly read it into the record. The actual physical letter remains available to us at any time through the website. So this is a letter from Mr. Barry Abbott, and his subject is Snyder Road Bridge over Sabino Creek. To RTA Citizen Advisory Committee. I'm a resident in the northeast part of Greater Tucson near Houghton and Catalina Highway. I'm a Tucson native and U of A engineering graduate. Since moving here from another part of Tucson, I have noticed the very large amount of traffic on Tencaverde Road near Sabino Canyon and on Grant Road in the same area. After doing some research, I found that it has the heaviest traffic in Tucson, with the exception of the west section of Golf Links, Oracle Road, I-10, and I-19. I also noticed that a Snyder Road Bridge has been in the planning since 1960. Several studies and proposals have been conducted over the years, the last in 2014, as documented in a memo from Mr. Huckleberry to the Board of Supervisors dated June 17, 2014. There are now several proposals to rezone areas in Tencaverde Valley and significantly increase housing density. This should not be allowed without improving the traffic situation with the bridge at Sabino Creek. This would have significant benefits to the residents of Tencaverde Valley and the Catalina foothills, as well as the greater Tucson area as discussed below. Previous traffic studies showed that the Snyder Bridge would reduce mileage driven by residents of our area by 7 million miles per year. This would result in savings of $4 million per year in vehicle costs based on the IRS 58 cents per mile metric. Gas consumption would be reduced by 300,000 gallons per year and CO2 emissions by 5.5 million pounds per year. This is equivalent to planting about 30,000 trees in Tucson. The 7 million miles reduction would also result in about 30 fewer vehicle accidents per year. In addition to the cost savings, environmental and traffic safety benefits mentioned, residents will save approximately 200,000 hours of driving time per year. This is significant, particularly for working families. I'm sure there's been resistance from some residents near Snyder Road. However, this project would be a significant benefit for the great majority of residents of our area. Thank you in advance for your serious consideration in this matter. Signed, Barry Abbott. And we'd like to thank Mr. Abbott for his submittal, and would ask anyone else in the community who's interested in participating in our meetings to feel free to comment using the RTA mobility site. All right, we can now move on to item number 4. I'm sorry, was there a comment?
Yeah, Ramon Ganders here.
Yes.
I have a question.
Ramon, before you comment, I want to remind people that we can't respond to these comments that we receive during the meeting.
And that's exactly my point. Are we following up with these people, since I know we're doing this differently than if we were in person?
Yes, staff will be following up with individual people and referring these comments to others that may have interest in them. I think that section that was described as within Pima County, so I'm sure that this will be forwarded to Pima County for further consideration.
Great, thank you. That's all I was wondering.
You bet. All right. So as I said at the beginning of the meeting, we're happy to welcome 3 jurisdictions to the meeting today. And we will use this opportunity to interact with those representatives and to try to learn whatever we can about their proposals and help share with them the things that might be on our mind. So I think I'll turn it back to Paki and let her introduce our speakers today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Tom mentioned, we have 3 presentations for you this afternoon and morning. Our first presenter is Mr. Terry Rosema. I'm used to calling him Chief Rosema, as he was Chief of Police of the town of Marana for a very long time. He is now the town manager for the town of Marana, and he will now be presenting. So, Mr. Chief Manager, you can take it away and share your screen.
All right, thank you, Paki. Can you guys, can you see my screen yet?
No, not yet. There it is.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, Paki. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity here to, I better get to the beginning of the slides here.
And Mr. Rosema, if you want, you can go ahead and put it in slideshow so we don't see all of your slides.
Okay, it should. Okay, we just went through all this with my staff to make sure that we had this right. And yeah, it should be the screen on my left here, and that doesn't seem to be showing. So you guys are seeing the screen that has all of the slides up as opposed to the screen that just has the beginning slide.
That's correct.
correct.
We see all of the small slides.
Terry, I think if you double click on the far top left there, it says from beginning. On the icon from beginning on top, that should slide your, there you go, far left on top. There you go. Double click on that.
That's weird.
Nothing? Huh. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and proceed. I think we're fine.
All right. Well, I apologize. Like I said, I had my staff in here and we set it up so that the screen on my left would be the screen that was showing, and that's the one that doesn't have all the slides on the side. But nonetheless, here we
Terry?
are. Yes.
Terry, real quick, if you go back to the green button in the Zoom control panel and click on share, it'll allow you to select the other screen. You see that option? There you go. Yes, that looks great. Thank you.
Ah, ta-da, success. And now you guys know why I was a police chief for so long. Because I can't figure out how to do all this technical stuff apparently. Well, thank you. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about projects in Marana. You know, we're going to get into a few things here. I did realize after seeing some of your backgrounds here that I need to do something with my back. I think based on Pocky's background there, I need an Adobe fireplace in my office here. We're going to start off with a few things, kind of our history with the RTA, projects that we've done successfully through and with partnerships with the RTA. Talk a little bit about growth projections in the town. And it's kind of fortuitous because we just recently had a retreat with our council where we had a developer, Will White. Some of you might know Will. Will's a pretty prominent developer in the region, and he really kind of opened our eyes to what the potential is. I think the potential is much grander and greater than even we want to try to tackle, but it certainly is good to know where that potential is and what the growth projections are. Then we'll kind of get into funding mechanisms, not only what we look forward to and with regard to partnerships with the RTA, but also other ways that we look to fund our infrastructure and specifically road transportation projects. And then kind of talk about moving forward with RTA Next and what's on the horizon for us. What we kind of see is we have quite a few projects that were submitted, and so we'll talk about some of those as well. So let's get into it here. So in terms of past collaborations here, there's a number of ones that I think probably most everybody, if you've been in the Tucson area for any length of time at all, you're familiar with. The Twin Peaks interchange was a significant improvement, obviously. Anytime we're doing these major interchange at grade crossings, very significant for the region in terms of safety, in terms of moving traffic more efficiently. And being a person who lived in the Continental Ranch area for the better part of 20 years, I can tell you everybody in that area was so grateful when Twin Peaks was opened up and that was done, the interchange. And of course, you have the Twin Peaks Road. Now, I don't know how many of you on the line have actually had the opportunity to drive up or down Twin Peaks, north or south, but I can tell you, it's absolutely an incredible roadway for moving traffic more efficiently rather than going all the way up to Tangerine to get to Tangerine Road, get you up into the Dove Mountain area, get you on over to Oro Valley. And not only is it efficient with regard to moving traffic, but whether you're driving north on Twin Peaks or you're driving south on Twin Peaks, it's a beautiful drive. So really a fantastic project, and you see some of the numbers there relative to RTA's involvement and contributions, the money that we put toward it, and likewise PEG. And then Tangerine Road itself was a significant widening project that not only involved us, but Oro Valley and the county. Very significant widening project that has resulted in much safer roadways in the Northwest Oro Valley and Marana. There's been a number of other very significant RTA projects. Ina Road and the interchange there would certainly be one. That was done in conjunction with not only RTA, but also ADOT. So you can see there from a historical standpoint, the involvement, the cooperation, the relationship And I think we have a very good relationship with the RTA and look forward to continuing that. So this slide right here, this is a great slide, and this is actually courtesy of Will White, and I'm grateful we're able to use it because I think it really highlights, you know, where the growth is going to happen in the region over the course of the next 1 to 10 years. And you can see for yourself clearly there that 1 to 3 range and 3 to 5 and 5 to 10 year range. And there's a lot of growth potential in the region in the Marana area. So we only account for about 5% of the population in the region, but we account for almost roughly a quarter of 25% of the actual growth in the region. So we're obviously one of the primary growth areas in the region. And if you drive through here, you see that there's always construction going on, new developments, new businesses, so on and so forth. And we have our economic developer, Kurt Woody, has been fielding a lot of phone calls from various industries and businesses that are looking to locate to Marana. We have a lot of open vacant land, and we have 17 miles of I-10 running right through the middle of our community. So the opportunities and potential for growth, not only from a residential standpoint, but from a business standpoint, from an economic development and industry standpoint as well, are very clear. And we continue to look forward to what opportunities come our way in that regard. I'm going to highlight just a couple of areas here so you can see not only the numbers, but the areas, the planned communities, and the number of single family residences that are planned for these areas. This is the area of what we call Northern Marana, and it's basically from Tangerine and I-10 area all the way to the Pinal County line. Now, some of this is already developed. Gladden 1 and Gladden 2 are, Gladden 2 is getting close to being fully done. And the folks that are responsible for those 2 developments also recently are involved in purchasing more land in that area to further develop to the east of them. We also just signed some development agreements and have a group called Bellaflor that is going to build what is on the west side of the freeway, really I'm sorry, on the east side of the freeway, which is really our first development that's going to go at Tangerine and I-10 on the east side. And primarily the reason we haven't had any development in the area is because we don't have any water or sewer on that side. And the folks at Bellaflor are actually expending the monies to punch water and sewer underneath the freeway to service that area. So that's going to really begin to light up that entire side of the freeway. We just completed a road, which we're going to do a grand opening here on the 23rd. I have Keith Brand, our town engineer, here in the office because he's so much more familiar with this stuff than I am. If there's questions that arise that I'm not able to answer, he's here for me. But Adonis Road, we're going to do a grand opening on that. And that was a commitment from the town to the people of San Lucas and Adonis on the east side of the freeway near Marana road exit to give them an alternate way out of their communities, because we've had situations where the train has stopped on the tracks and they literally can't get out of their communities there. So that's really going to light up that area. We have quite a bit of interest in developers that are approaching us about other Vanderbilt, the villages that Barnett has already started, and a number of others that are reaching out to us, Cypress Gardens, and a number of others. So you can see there, 26,000 planned single-family residences, and only 3,100 of those are currently built. And then you see here, and I'll kind of, if you can see my the mouse here, this is Twin Peaks Road going all the way up to, beautiful road, as I said, going all the way up to Tangerine and then into Dove Mountain, turns into Dove Mountain Boulevard there. And you can see all of the infrastructure and the building that's going on along here. Again, 22,000 planned single-family residences, and only less than a third of those are actually built out. So you really, if you haven't taken a drive up Twin Peaks lately, you'll see a lot of new development going on here. Some really beautiful, well planned out communities in this area. Then we'll talk for just a few minutes about, how we go about funding transportation here in the town of Marana. And there's, we've got kind of 4 blocks there of different ways that we go about doing that. Conditions of rezoning is one of the first areas that we look to. And in those situations, when developers are coming in, it's the old adage of development needs to pay for itself, right? And so when they're coming in looking to develop, whether it's a commercial area or whether they're looking to develop a master plan community with residences, we look right away to get the right of way dedicated to us and for them to build the infrastructure that's needed to light those areas up. So whether those are major roads, for example, Adonis Road was supposed to be built by a developer. They had to back out of that, but the town committed to ensuring, regardless of whether the development went in, that we would build that road. And now we'll recover those monies through one of our other ways, which is impact fees under dedicated funding. So impact fees is another way that we go about paying for some of those roads. And I think we may be the only community, at least in Pima County, that uses construction sales tax. I mean, I think everybody has construction sales tax, but we have dedicated construction sales tax that specifically goes toward transportation and the building of infrastructure. 3/4 of every cent that's collected from construction sales tax goes for that very purpose. Then, of course, we have regional partnerships via the RTA, PAG, ADOT, local partners. We've partnered with the city of Tucson to do Silver Bell Road and other local partners as well. Maintenance for our roads, we use our town shared highway user revenue funds. So we rely very heavily on that. And we've managed very well to keep our streets. If you've driven through our neighborhoods and used any of our arterial streets, you'll see that the public works crews and the people that we contract to do some of that maintenance, chip sealing and things of that nature, they do a fantastic job of making sure that our roads are very well preserved and maintained. So our priorities, probably very similar to the other jurisdictions, reduce congestion, because congestion, having served almost 35 years in the public safety industry, I can tell you that congestion leads to all kinds of problems, not just accidents, but people getting angry and getting into fights and road rage and things like that. So reducing congestion and ensuring, quite frankly, that we don't put ourselves in a position where we wind up with congestion and have to try and make up ground. So some of these projects will certainly help us to ensure that we move traffic quickly, and the next bullet point there, safely, improve safety across all modes of transportation. Reduce wildlife related crashes. We have a number of projects on the horizon where wildlife corridors are come into play there. And that's a very important thing, not only for our council, but for our community. We hear from various, not only individuals, but various alliances and groups who are very concerned about ensuring that we maintain those corridors. So that will be a very important aspect of some of our ask as well. Improving access to regional destinations. So, because Marana has this 17 miles of I-10 running right through the middle, basically bisecting our entire community, it provides for a lot of opportunities for economic growth, for tourism, and making sure that people can get off the freeway to the locations and destinations they want to get to is certainly a part of that as well. Setting corridors for economic development, which I've already spoke to a couple of times as well. Number 1 and 2 there have really been kind of is what's guided our highest priority things. Of course, safety, so important. And the interchanges along I-10 certainly come into play with that, with railroad crossings where you're right up next to those big engines coming through. Eliminating those and taking those out of the mix makes everybody safer. So some of the major projects that we have submitted for, the interchanges, which I've talked about, Cortero interchange. If you ever come to Cortero to do any shopping, you're going to feel the congestion, and it's not a safe interchange. And it's not safe because you have to be right up against the railroad tracks there. It's narrow. There's just not good movement of traffic in that area. You get a lot of backing up at the lights. You get people trying to make left turns into the Walmart shopping center there, with traffic barreling down the other direction. So we get a lot of accidents in that area. Probably our second highest area for traffic collisions in the entire town. Ina Road expansions, Twin Peaks Rattlesnake Pass widening. Those are 2 significant ones as well. Ina Road is becoming very congested with only 4 lanes in that area. It's a significant mover for us in terms of our business community. So getting traffic through there more efficiently and safely is important. If you haven't been over Twin Peaks at Rattlesnake Pass, very narrow roadway. And that's also a corridor for animals, the fauna of the desert traveling north and south. So that's going to be a significant part of that project as well. And then, some of the ones right up here in this area, Tangerine Farms Extension will tie in the loop all the way from Tangerine and I-10, all the way back up and around to Marana and I-10. Marana Main Street Extension and Tangerine Road Connector. So that is basically our presentation, and I'm sure that some of you have questions. So if you do, Keith and I are here to answer whatever questions you have.
Thanks very much, Mr. Rosamo. We will open the floor to any questions. I know one of the questions that probably several people have would have to do with maintenance of your current facilities and future facilities, and how you pay for it currently, and what your plans are for the future, as well as your position about RTA involvement in any of that type of work.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier, we utilize our construction sales tax to do a significant portion of our pavement preservation. So in this next year's budget, we have roughly 2.6 set aside for roadway preservation, maintenance, and things of that nature. About $1.5 million is specifically for roadway maintenance, the actual roads themselves. The other portion of that is for signs, for landscaping, and things of that nature. So I'm sorry, I said construction sales tax. I meant HERF. So thank you for correcting me there, Heath. So we use the HERF funding specifically for that. And we set aside monies every year to ensure and have a very good schedule set up. Going forward, there has been some discussions and concerns from the council about how we're going to continue to maintain and preserve the roads in the manner in which our communities become accustomed. And so there hasn't been any decisions made on this yet at this point, but some recent discussions among the council about not accepting neighborhood roadways, we'll take the arterial roads and the spine roads, but the actual roadways that the houses sit on would have to be maintained by the homeowners themselves. So those are discussions that we're having because as this is growing and getting bigger and bigger for us, trying to stay on top of that is certainly going to be a challenge. But right now, we're able to handle it, and we handle it very well. And I think we've positioned ourselves with the monies that we get from HERF, and also using construction sales tax in ways to build new roadways and development.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn, did you have a question? I guess not. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Dale Calvert.
Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
Where ADOT has indicated in their proposal that they're not willing to, they're putting all of their future funding towards the interstate going south. And they aren't proposing any funding for the traffic interchanges. And they're, the number, I guess, is about $90 million a piece. Is Marana planning on participating in funding those, or are you looking for 100% funding, or what are you looking at for funding those very expensive projects?
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to allow Keith to jump in on this. I can tell you that in the past, we have provided funding for some of those, and I could go back to the slide, but if you remember back to the slide that talked specifically about the Ina Road interchange and the Twin Peaks interchange, those were both significant interchanges, obviously, and each one of those, the town came to the table with millions of dollars to help support that project. And Keith, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but.
Yeah, so when we created the new interchange, the Twin Peaks interchange, the town put forth about $14 million towards the project, as did ADOT. The balance of that project funding came from federal earmarks and RTA and PAD. Some of these other interchanges, they're very regional in nature. They carry regional traffic. They're east-west corridor connectors, such as Cotero and Tangerine. So it would be something that we would want the region to try to support. Something like perhaps the Marana interchange, the town actually does have in its impact fee program about $6 million to try to fund interim improvements to try to limp that interchange along until ADOT can get to it. But again, these interchanges are on the federal system, and we think they're more of a regional benefit and should be really addressed by ADOT.
Bruce Wright.
Yeah, thank you. One of the issues that the committee is considering is whether or not we should provide flexibility in the use of RTA funds and allow potentially reprogramming, say, a decade out to respond to changes in growth patterns or traffic demand or technology. I was wondering if you had a thought about that or a position about that concept.
Yeah, I I can't say that I have given thought to that. I think Keith has a question with regard to what it is you're asking that might help clarify a response.
Are you meaning to have a certain amount of funding in the RTA program that's not allocated or defined at this time and to adapt in the future to something?
Well, I think we're thinking about it in two terms. One is that possibility. Maybe we reserve a certain percentage of funding that is not allocated immediately to projects. Or the other possibility is as we see growth or traffic patterns change, that you could reprogram monies to higher and best uses or to take advantage of technology. And we're talked about some kind of a mechanism that would allow for that sort of mid-course correction, say 10 or 15 years out.
I see what you're saying now. Yeah, I think we would be open to that. I think that makes a lot of sense because what you're thinking right now is the need may not be, 5-6 years from now. So I think having the flexibility within the RTA next to be able to respond to some of that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Not something that we specifically talked about, however, but great point.
I think as some of these questions that we have will start to be discussed, start to be discussed more at the TMC meetings and other venues. So just kind of things to put on your radar, I think.
Very good.
I think I saw a comment or a raised hand from Mel Cohen. Is that right, Mel?
Yes, I was going to ask, can we get the size of the interchange, the potential cost for that Marana wanted? What's the ballpark for those costs?
For a brand new TI, for a brand new interchange? Is that what you're asking? The cost of a whole new interchange?
Yeah.
I want to say they're in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 million. Is that about right? Yeah.
Very good. Carolyn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting before. So thank you, Mr. Rossima, and I'm glad Keith is there too. Hi, Keith. For your kind of the vision of your growth that you talked about in your retreat, and also your concerns and looking for funding for wildlife passages in a couple of the roads, because it is important up there. I guess a couple of questions is one, you were talking a lot about how all this new growth is going to come in and need to have roads throughout Marana, but I'm wondering how you feel that those are regional projects. And then you were also talking about impact fees going to cover them. So are you talking about impact fees covering half of these and then a request for RTA money for the other half, or how are you looking at it in terms of regional funding?
Yeah. So I think with each one of the projects that we have done in the past with the RTA, and that would be the case going forward too, is, we come to the table with a portion of funding, some of that via impact fees, some of that through our construction sales tax, our capital improvement projects, our money set aside specifically for some of these projects as well. But I think any entity in this region can't do these types of projects on their own. They're just too large. And with the community growing as quickly as it is, I think it is a regional thing. Regional in the sense that everybody uses I-10, and tourism and economic growth and economic development is certainly going to center around some of those interchanges along the I-10. So the more economic growth, I'm telling you things you already know, but obviously the more economic development and growth with regard to industry and business and things of that nature, the more jobs and whatnot. So I think from that standpoint, it is regional. And obviously, many of the people that live in Marana work in other places throughout the region and vice versa. So hope I answered your question, Carolyn. And good to hear from you too, by the way.
Yes, thank you. And yes, you did. I'm not sure, if I agree with all of it as in terms of all the needs that we're looking at in the RTA that are kind of here and now, as opposed to what we're looking at in the future. But I know Marana is looking at a lot of potential growth in the future. I know Rattlesnake Pass is certainly one we've looked at for a long time. That is a current need. But the other question, when the mayor came and talked to us, he talked about proposing transit. He was talking more about the vans and all that. So I was wondering, is there anything that you all are looking at, particularly for all this new growth that is relating to public transit and safety? Pedestrian safety.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
I'll just put transit and pedestrian safely, and of course, safety and of course, bicycle.
Yeah. So with regard to transit, we are, as the mayor said, if you listen to his presentation, absolutely, that's something that we are looking to increase and improve and provide more locations for transit pickup and drop off to decrease the amount of traffic on the roadways and decrease emissions and all of those things. Providing bike pathways, very huge priority for our community. And I think we've, in virtually every project that we have had at least in the last 10 years that I've been here, nice pathways, walkways, bike paths have all been a part of those projects.
Okay, thank you.
Terry, one of the things I've noticed just jumped out at me in the slides you had of the overview of the town and its infrastructure was that it reminds me a lot of Tucson in one way, and that is that the interstate is set up to become a major arterial. That is, instead of handling just interstate traffic by necessity, just the way Marana is on both sides of the freeway and has developed around the freeway, that probably already is a large addition to the amount of traffic on I-10, just local traffic. Overall, do you have plans for, and are you looking at or supporting other regional bypasses, if you will, or other major arterial connectors within the town?
Yes, great question. And I would say Twin Peaks Road would be one of those that was developed certainly to do that. We have the Avra Valley extension, I guess you would call it, that would Avra Valley dead ends right into the I-10 there, and extending that all the way up to Tangerine Farms Road, again, to provide access and keeping people off of the freeway and on some of those major arterial streets. We have the Tangerine connection would be another major route that would provide and keep people off of the freeway. Tangerine Farms connection all the way through from Tangerine and I-10 all the way up and around through all those communities, Gladden Farms and forgetting the other ones up there, but all the way up to I-10 would provide a lot of relief to the freeway.
Good, thank you. Diane Shiflett? You need to unmute, Diane.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rosena, I appreciated your comments that you're considering the corridor for animals that are traveling north and south, and you said that's a significant part of that project that you're referring to. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Thank you.
Okay, I was having a hard time hearing, so I'll try to recapture, I think, what you were asking, and I think you were asking about the animal corridors. Essentially, obviously, up in the Tortolita Mountains, there's significant wildlife in that area, as well as in the Tucson Mountains, and they traverse the area along the Tortolita Fan, through the preserve, all the way down and across to there's a connection that runs under near Avra Valley. That's an animal corridor there. And now with expanded growth in the area of what's now Saguaro Bloom on the other side of the Tucson Mountains at Rattlesnake Pass, Twin Peaks and Rattlesnake Pass. That's an area where more and more traffic is coming because Saguaro Bloom is really taking off. It's really blooming. And there's just a lot of houses that are being built over there. And you have the high school down there. So Twin Peaks it's a 2-lane road, and there's a lot of traffic coming through there. And to make sure that those, the animals as they're traversing the desert from, the north to the south and back, that they have a good place to cross. I think you've probably seen, on Oro Valley has the animal crossing that's a bridge. Whether it's a bridge over there or whether it's a tunnel, I don't know, but there needs to be something that provides better access for wildlife in that area.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Rosema. We really appreciate it, and thanks for having Keith around as well to chime in on some of these questions. Look forward to continuing to work with you as we start to put together a draft plan.
Thank you very much.
If you're willing or able and would like to stick around and listen to the other presentations, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm going to ask Paki to set us up for our next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next presentation will be from the town of Sahuarita, and it'll be Ms. Beth Abramovitz. Ms. Abramovitz is the Public Works Director and also the town manager for the town of Sahuarita, and has been for a few years. So Beth, if you are ready to share your screen. We can see your screen, Beth. We just can't hear you.
Yeah, I was having trouble unmuting.
Okay, there you go.
And I'm the town engineer, not manager. But thank you for the promotion.
Sorry, Beth, I did promote you. I was still thinking of Terry. Beth is the town engineer and the Public Works Director. All right, take it away, Beth.
All right, well, thank you everyone for having us here today. Just a little bit of brief background and history for the town of Sahuarita. So we were incorporated in 1994, making us the youngest town in the region by about 17 years, but we've been catching up to our regional siblings. We currently have almost the same land area as Oro Valley, and we've consistently been the second fastest growing community behind Marana. So as you can see, there's been a considerable amount of change in the town in the past 27 years. And based on the current permitting rates, development under review, and discussions with builders, we're currently projecting a 4% growth rate for at least the next 2 years, which may taper back to about 2.5% over the following several years. So some of our future growth areas include some commercial infill in the Duval Mine Road area, the Rancho Sarita area south of Sarita Road, and I'll probably be talking about some of these a little bit more in depth as we move forward. The La Villita specific plan area, which is being developed by Green Valley 28, and of course the Quail Creek area. So given what we know about the growth in Sarita, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what makes our priority projects a priority to the town and our residents. So the La Villita extension is the town's #1 priority in the RTA next. So right now, La Villita just kind of dead ends. And so the road would be a much needed north-south connection, as well as provide access to our future town center district and to the residents of Quail Creek and Madera Highlands. Today, this road has only about an ADT of about 1,250. However, Green Valley 28, they're doing what we're calling the La Villita specific plan. This plan is for about 800 to 1,200 residential units plus commercial, and it's on the west side of La Villita Road. So they will be extending La Villita Road along their frontage. And by 2028, with just the Green Valley 28 development, the ADT on La Villita is expected to be over 17,000. So the project submitted for consideration in RTA Next includes a portion of the area in yellow, and then all of the red area. The extension would include a 4-lane section with bike and pedestrian amenities, and the preferred alignment connects to our existing Calle Valle Verde Road, which has a signalized intersection with Nogales Highway. So then there's also our town center concept. The extension is important because the town is working on development of a 21-acre town center on the east side of La Villita Road. This parcel is intended to have playing fields, as well as container-type retail space, a venue for music and other activities, as well as a splash pad and other playground amenities. Green Valley 28 is south of where you can see my cursor, which is going south. It's about 1.5 miles south of this location. So our planning department is currently completing an overlay for the town center district. This district actually extends south from Sarita Road all the way to Nogales Highway. I'm only showing a portion of it here. FICO owns the Sarita Farms properties, and they're anxious to start development at least in the 32 acres of their mixed use parcel. And this parcel will most likely develop in conjunction with the town center, which is just south of that, and then the Green Valley 28, which is further south. So the extension and widening of El Toro is our #2 priority for RTA Next. As you've seen, El Toro would provide a much needed connection to the planned development on La Villita Road, as well as Rancho Sarita development. So you can see this is where El Toro would come through, and this is La Villita Road. So it would connect. This is about half of the currently proposed Rancho Sarita development that is under review. There's about 1,800 homes. Actually, this section is about 1,200 homes, and then the section south of here is about 1,800 additional homes. So right now, about everything that you see here is in various stages of review or under contract with various builders. The extension would allow for Rancho Sarita Boulevard to continue to the south, crossing El Toro Road, and this allows the town to abandon Twin Buttes Road, which comes along through this property up here. And it would removes the awkward rail crossing, the at-grade rail crossing that is currently right there, and will provide a true perpendicular gated crossing. There's also 2 minor crossings that are in here as well that this extension would allow us to remove. The extension of El Toro Road to La Vita, the initial extension that the town will be doing, is expected to be completed by 2023. And this will further increase the volumes that we're going to be seeing on La Vita. So again, this is our number 2 priority, and we're also in discussions with Freeport BP to obtain right-of-way necessary for this extension. Freeport BP owns this whole property right here, so we anticipate having the right-of-way well in advance of RTA next. So about 12,000 residential lots are currently sandwiched between Pima Mine Road and Sarita Road. This means all these residents only have 2 choices when they're going anywhere. So future build out of this area will add over 1,500 additional residential units. This makes the widening of Pima Mine Road the number 3 priority for the town. With Pima County and the town working on plans for a regional wastewater facility, build out of this area would most likely happen in the next 7 to 12 years in conjunction with that facility coming online. The next project is the Quail Crossing extension. The first phase of this project was completed about 3 years ago with the design and construction of about 0.8 miles of 2-lane road from Nogales Highway to the Anza Trail trailhead. Design for phase 2 of the Quail Crossing extension was recently completed by the town. That project includes 1.2 miles of 2-lane road, a separate multi-use path for bikes and pedestrians for the entire length of the extension, and a low-flow bridge crossing of the Santa Cruz River. The design also includes a traffic signal at the intersection with Old Nogales Highway. It will provide a much-needed connection for our Quail Creek and Madera Highland residents to our commercial areas. And it provides access to large areas of currently undeveloped state land, as well as to undeveloped areas that have existing specific plans. So the third and final phase of the Quail Crossing extension is the proposed widening of this road to 4 lanes, construction of a bridge that would not be overtopped in a 100-year storm, bike and pedestrian facilities, and upgrades to the traffic signal. The rendering that you see here is actually the low-flow bridge that's going to be built with our currently proposed project. So this project is the town's number 4 priority. We anticipate that these improvements would be necessary in about 15 years due to the construction going on in Madera Highlands and Quail Creek developments, as well as to anticipated development in the area immediately adjacent to this extension. So the last item I'd like to discuss briefly is about pavement preservation. The town currently has a 5-year plan, which is posted on our website. So this is actually what you would see if you went on our website. And we update the plan near the end of each fiscal year. The town currently dedicates between $1 and $1.2 million each year to pavement preservation using some of our HERF dollars. However, that level of funding can only be maintained with an infusion of general fund dollars into our program each year. Our overall condition index average for the roads within the town is right now is a 75.1. And this coming fiscal year, our plan includes the mill and overlay of all our local roads that have an OCI of 65 or less, so that we would have no fair or poor roads left in our inventory. Ideally, the town would like to see the RTA next include a category for pavement preservation for projects that were either originally funded by the RTA or for arterial roads, as arterial roads provide benefits not just to the residents of an area, but to the entire region. And that's really the end of my presentation. So if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Beth. Ron Hill has a question.
Just curious, does Sarita use impact fees from developers to go toward the construction of their roadways?
No, we are the only jurisdiction in the region that does not have impact fees.
Thank you.
Diane?
Hi, thank you, Chairman. This is Diane Shiflett. I have a question about what the plan is for water use in this area. You mentioned a couple of features that do use significant water. Thank you.
Diane, I'm not sure in what regard. We have a number of different water companies that provide water in this area. As part of the two specific plans that I spoke about just in general, farmers' water is FICO. So part of their specific plan is providing water to all of their proposed development. And actually in the map that you see right there, they have about 4,000 acres of pecan farms just in the town of Sarita that they provide water to now. And as farmers' water, they would provide water to. Everything in Rancho Sarita is provided water by Sarita Water Company. And we also have a number of smaller water companies in the area. Did that answer your question?
All right. Thank you, Jamie. I see Jamie Colley has his hand up.
Yeah, so you said Sarita doesn't have impact fees, but I think all the other jurisdictions do. But you still pay impact fees to Pima County, right? As the new development goes in to help pay for the development in that area. Is that correct?
No. No. We do have a construction sales tax, but no, we don't have any impact fees.
Okay. And the developers under no like existing MOU with the town to pay for their own growth in essence.
In instances where we have specific plans or development plans, just like how Terry was talking about for the town of Marana, that we work with them to the best extent possible to pay for the infrastructure that's related to their growth. For instance, for Green Valley 28, for the La Vita specific plan, and actually that's why it's not included as part of the project for RTA next, is the section of La Vita Road from Sarita Road to their development. The town is working with them, and we're working on a deal where we'd each pay a share towards the ultimate widening of that section of the road. Green Valley 28 is also bringing in all the infrastructure, the water, the sewer, everything else. So the town would only be paying for the portion that would be oversized for our future development or our future needs. Does that make sense?
Yep. And I guess, Mr. Chair, if I can do a follow-up question, with the expansion by Pima and road in that area, how will that affect the proposed Sonoran corridor?
It doesn't. The Sonoran corridor connects just south of El Toro Road and goes east. So actually none of these projects would be impacted by that. And that was actually part by design. And they're meant to complement the Sonoran corridor. And even actually I-11 when that comes in as well.
Maybe as a quick follow-up to that, could you talk for a minute about other regional projects? Pima County has things out east of you off of Houghton Road, and I know Wilmot Road is also this subject of some planning efforts. Are you plugged into those with the county, and how do you see them contributing to your overall transportation needs?
And unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it here, but the town, we do have an annexation plan policy. It's called CCAP, and that does eventually plan for annexation pretty far east, I think actually almost to Houghton, if not to Houghton. We do stay plugged in with the county and what they're doing, and actually even for the initial RTA projects, there was coordination that went on with the county about certain projects and what we felt was, maybe we were seeing that was necessary and what they were seeing and how to prioritize certain projects. So we are staying plugged in with them and, continue to work with them on, how we'll eventually, that boundary will expand to the east and we'll kind of join up with some of their existing projects.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then your connection with, you mentioned the Sonoran corridor, but connection to capacity improvements on I-19 is also probably pretty key for your community.
Correct.
Beth, this is Ted Maxwell. I've got a quick question on all the growth that you've projected in the region. Is it all within the confines of the town of Sarita, or will there also be some in unincorporated Pima County that may look at either annexation in the future?
There are a few areas, it's relatively minor right now, that are immediately adjacent to the town that are going on, that we're in discussions with them already about annexation. We've actually also been talking with the folks at state land, because the majority of the land to the east of us is state land. We do still have I think it's about a 600-acre piece that is within the town, with kind of within Rancho Sarita, that's state land, that state land would really like to see us develop first. But I think as the regional plant comes online, that's gonna really kind of spur some of that additional development, because right now our biggest challenge is that we can only provide wastewater service to residents in Rancho Sarita. But once we get that agreement together with the county to provide that regional facility, we can expand and actually provide to our entire designated management area, as opposed to just that sewer service area.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate the answer.
Chris Schmaltz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there plans for an impact fee? Is it being studied? Is it being considered? What I guess I'm curious about the lack of an impact fee, and if there are plans to consider it, given the growth that you've identified and what is likely to continue.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. To impose new impact fees at this time, it's just such, and I hate using this, convoluted process. And our mayor and council, I don't think really want to pursue movement in that direction.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah, Beth, you might want to mention some of the CFDs that the town is using, almost similar to impact fees.
Farhad is correct. We are working with, that's actually how Rancho Sarita Boulevard has been and will continue to be constructed. We're doing CFDs. A lot of Quail Creek has been constructed using CFDs and community facility districts. We actually are currently working with Rancho Sarita on another $15 million, essentially, bond issuance to build the remaining portion of Rancho Sarita Boulevard, the initial portion of El Toro Road, the initial extension to the east, the new railroad crossing there. So that's all being done using the CFD as a funding mechanism.
Maybe for the benefit of the committee that may not know what CFDs are, community facility districts, how is the cost shared among the various parties in a typical one of those, Beth?
So it's an additional taxing district for the residents in those districts, and it varies through the town. I don't know off the top of my head what the dollar amount is in each area, but it's over typically about a 20-year period that those additional districts, as additional homes come in, they essentially pay for that infrastructure. So the people who are really using that infrastructure the most are really the ones bearing the burden of it the most. But the money is kind of fronted through bonds.
The residents, it's added as a tax to the tax bill of the residents who live in the district.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I thought I had my hand up. This is Carolyn.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think this is probably more of a discussion point for our committee after we have, all the different projects to consider, but I'm still having trouble, just like I said with Marana, about the RTA paying for roads for future growth, but like I said, that's probably not a question. I will say I thank you for bringing up Sarita's pavement preservation map, because I was really hoping that when the jurisdictions came back to us, they would be talking about projects other than just the road projects. And that seems to be what we're continue to hear about. You know, we've been dealing with our goals of sustainability and climate change and all that. And all we've really been hearing about is new or bigger or wider roads. So, I mean, I hope that when we do get to our real nitty gritty discussion, we're going to have a lot to talk about. And I hope we do, about what this is going to look like. So, but Marana and Sarita both talked about, you know, their future growth plans and how the RTA needs to pay for those roads. So that's more of just a couple of overall comments. But I would also ask the same thing of Marana. I didn't hear anything about any proposed transit. You talked about sidewalks and bicycle lanes in some of your new road projects that you're proposing, but I would ask you what you think the needs are for public transit, and if you're planning on proposing any.
So actually, Carolyn, before I answer that question, I want to talk really briefly about your first item about sustainability. Okay. That one of the things that's kind of on our radar that we have plans for is actually one with our town center concept, and also right here at Town Hall is we're really looking to expand electric vehicle charging station availability. I don't know if anybody's ever looked at the charging station, the networked systems. There's nothing between Mexico and the city of Tucson. So we would love to get on the network. So we would really love to see that something along those lines be included in RTA Next as maybe a categorical to help fund some of those projects, to allow some of, like, you know, sustainable vehicles or other alternate modes, things along those lines. With regard to transit, it's actually not really on our residents' radars. We actually did a really big survey with our residents, and we had a very good response, all things considered. I don't know if it's just a matter of our demographic or just maybe we have enough locations in convenient locations. Actually, at Town Hall, I can actually see it from my window. We have a park and ride that is about 80% full every day. Great. It's not something that's actually come up on like the top 10 list of needs or wants for our residents. And I don't know if that's because our median age is 35. And maybe that's not the demographic that's using transit. But that it wasn't something that came up as a priority on our study. And it's not actually something that we even get typically complaints or questions about from our residents.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you very much.
Good. Dale.
Yeah, I just a second. Okay. Yes, I wanted to follow up on Carolyn's comment about maintenance and that. And I, having now sat on the City of Tucson's sales tax committee for a long time on local streets and arterial street maintenance, I would like to see the other jurisdictions come in with what kind of things, what they would be looking for. That is a very important issue, and I know that probably talking about only arterial here, but it's a critical need for the city of Tucson, and I'd like to see a little more discussion. And in fact, Diana didn't really discuss it that much when she was here at the last meeting. So it's still something I'd like to see. Like Carolyn, I'd like to see a little more discussion with all of the jurisdictions about that.
As I understood your presentation, Beth, you talked about maintenance as kind of a supplement to your 5-year maintenance plan, but primarily to be focused on arterial roads and I guess current and future RTA projects. Did I get that right?
That's what we would like to see in RTA next. We would like to see a maintenance component for either projects that were built using RTA funds or arterial roadways. Right now, our current plan does include a mix of our arterials and our local roads. Right now, this spring, and actually right now going on today, we are doing a pavement preservation of Sarita Road. We actually just completed La Vita Road. We completed part of Rancho Sarita Boulevard earlier this year, and we're going to complete the remainder of it this year. And with regard to like local roads, part of the program that's going on this spring is we're actually doing all the roads around the town hall area as well. So we are covering a large number of our arterial roads this year. So we are doing those as well as locals. We're not just focusing just on the local roads.
Right. Good. Thanks for clarifying that. Do you have any other questions for the town of Sarita? Very good. Thanks so much, Beth. Really appreciate the presentation and questions.
And I'll give Pocky oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I would say I'll give Pocky, our presentation's GIS based, so I'll give her the link, and then if people wanted to look at it and get into it more, we can share it. So.
Thank you, Beth.
Excellent. Thanks. Okay, Pocky.
Okay, our third and final presentation today will be from Pima County. We have two presenters today. We've got Ms. Ana Olivares, the director of the Pima County Department of Transportation, and she's been the director for the past 3 years. And then her deputy director, Catherine Skinner, who has been on board for 2 years. And together, these two ladies make a fantastic duo over at the Pima County Department of Transportation. So with that, I'll hand it over to you to share your screen.
Thank you very much, Pocky. I will hopefully share my screen. No, let me try this. Can you guys see that?
Not yet.
Oh, maybe I push share.
There you go.
That's always helpful. So hopefully you can see the full presentation now.
Yes, it's all up. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the committee for giving us the opportunity to present today. As Pocky mentioned, my name is Ana Olivares. I'm the Transportation Director with Pima County. And Catherine Skinner is our Deputy Director, and she and I will be presenting today. Today, we're going to review some of the processes that we have used and continue to reflect on as we develop the RTA Next program. We're going to cover the transportation mission and vision, our existing conditions, then our performance and desired outcomes, solution strategies, and then finally, we'll close up with the RTA Next proposal. As we continued on our continuous improvement journey, we have developed the vision and mission that you see up on the screen. And we do this acknowledging that we have some really tremendous challenges based on funding constraints and the overall need of the county. We have limited resources and large demand requires us to be strategic and efficient in all of our spending. And we're also very well aware of the tremendous opportunities that new technologies and advances are constantly increasing the solutions that are available to us. So we work really hard to find the right size solutions and to remain flexible to choose the right solution at the right time as we move along. The next few slides, I'm going to show something that we shared last time when we did our presentation to you all in 2019. And this shows our vast transportation network, our constituents, and our communities within the unincorporated county. As you can see, we have a lot of rural areas and a lot of communities like Catalina Foothills, Picture Rocks, Green Valley, Corona, Tucson, and Vail. And some of these communities operate like small cities and towns. And as we support the infrastructure, we have to rely on flexible solutions that fit each and one of those communities as we move forward. Last time we presented to you, we also presented the slide. We shared a snapshot of our system and where it was at that time. At the time, you'll see our budget at that time was 68.4 million, our unincorporated residents. At that time, we had about 2,100 miles of road, 215 bridges, and 13% of those are obsolete or deficient, 103 signalized intersections, and our payment condition index was at 38. That's between 0 to 100. I'm going to show you, fast forward to 2021, and you will see some changes in two of the categories, and the others are pretty much the same. Our population didn't really increase that much since then. We've added just a slight increase of our mileage, and that's with the finished development that we then take on the roads for future maintenance. Our bridges are the same number of obsolete and structurally deficient. We have not had funding to make repairs on those. Signals are the same. You will see that the pavement condition index has jumped to 64. Now, part of that is the funding, the increase in funding. You'll see that our budget for this year is 94.7 million. And that includes a good chunk of money that we're spending today, $50 million in additional pavement repair and preservation. So that does help the PCI. But the other thing that I want to point out is the prior PCI rating that we had of the 34 was based on an old system, the PASER rating system. That's a pavement surface evaluation rating, which was a visual inspection. And that had been done many years before. And we had not really done any new ratings since then. So what we did was we artificially degraded our roads and then multiplied, since the PASER rating goes from 0 to 10, and the PCI rating goes from 0 to 100, we just multiplied it by 10 to try to get us to a starting point of where the condition of our roads were. So since then, we've taken advantage of new technology, and we used a very technology-driven van to drive all our roads in unincorporated Pima County to give us some actual objective readings of the pavement. And we did that for all of our roads, and we came up with a new ratings for the PCI. So the 64 PCI, if we correlated, it was a 17-point difference between the PASER degraded that we had done and to what the PCI van gave us. The van gave us the PCI ratings. So it's about a 17-point difference, which is why you see such an increase now that we are at 64 PCI. As we continue forward with our pavement repair program, as you might have heard, we have a program to improve all of our roads to 80 or better, PCI 80 or better by 2030, and we're continuing with that plan. You will see that number increase in every report that we do every year. So that's my presentation. Catherine will continue now with the performance of our transportation system.
Thank you, Anna. So Anna provided a nice kind of context for the problem situation that we in the county have. You know, a lot of diversity, rural areas, urbanized areas, a lot of suburban areas, and that's what we're planning with that in mind. So one way that we are looking at it is, well, how is it performing right now? And what our goals are for it in the future? So in front of you is the transportation report card. What we did is we took the performance measures that are reported by PAG in the 2045 RMAP, and we kind of simplified them. So you could see where we're doing well and where maybe we need to work a little harder. In the RMAP, they use the terms on pace, and we're coining that good, and trend behind pace, which we're coining fair, and trending away, which we're coining as poor. So if you see of these 6 overarching metrics, there are 2 areas where we're really not doing well, and that's safety. So that's looking at fatality and serious injury crashes, vehicular, bicycle, pedestrian, transit. And then multimodal choice is the other area where we're really trending away. We're not going in the direction that we as a region have said is our goal to get better in those areas. So multimodal is looking at, again, at bicycle, pedestrian, and transit, accessibility, use, facility, presence. So that begs the question, well, what do we want in the RTA next? Which of these areas do we want to work on? You'll see that system performance, which looks at congestion metrics, travel time indices, we're doing just fine there. That could lead you to believe we don't need to widen a lot of roads. System maintenance, might be a little bit misleading. It shows that we're doing fairly well, but keep in mind that for pavement, that's only looking at the federal network. It's not looking at all of our arterials, our collectors, and it certainly is not looking at any of our local roadways, which is where we hear from the public that there's a lot of concern. So if you go to the next slide, Anna. We really think there needs to be a balanced approach to the RTA Next program, and we need to consider all available solutions to the issues we're facing here. Some of them are going to be our traditional solutions, and those are infrastructure strategies. That's really what we're used to seeing in the existing RTA plan. So critical lengths, growth corridors, economic driver type roadways. That's a little bit of what we heard from Marana and Sahuarita. We also have parts of town that are growing that we need to support. So the southeast portion of town near Vail and Corona de Tucson, the southwest part of town. The northwest, there was a huge effort in the first RTA to build the needed infrastructure up there, and it's really paid off. So there is a place for that in RTA Next, we believe. All weather crossings is another infrastructure strategy that we think is very important. If you drive Overton Road at the monsoons, it closes every single year after a storm event. Likewise, South Houghton closes frequently, Tanca Verde Loop, Silver Bell. So there's a lot of spot improvements that can be made that makes our overall system operate much better. If you don't have any cars crossing that flooded wash, you've really broken down your system. So we want to make our system work year round. Pavement preservation we're putting in there as an infrastructure solution. We've got a lot of roadways and we hear it over and over. There's potholes, and the funding mechanisms right now do not support the kind of pavement preservation, repair, maintenance that our system requires. So that's a very important category in any future transportation plans. And then the other two that we have on here, which do have an infrastructure component, though they also have a demand side component, which we'll look at soon, is multimodal connectivity. If you don't have a sidewalk, you're not going to get people walking. If you don't have a shared use path or a bike lane, you're not going to have people biking. And if you don't have a comfortable place to sit and wait for your bus, you're not going to have the transit use that you could. And those are really important features of a fully functional transportation system. We need to address mobility for the entire community. And then ITS communications infrastructure. That's talking about signals, getting the signals we have in place, speaking across jurisdictional boundaries. As you know, you may drive down a road and you're in the city of Tucson, then you're in the county, then you're ADOT facility, then you're in a Marana facility. We want all of those to talk to each other. That makes our existing roadway network work better if you're hitting those green lights instead of red lights. So now Anna can go to the next slide. This is the set of solutions that we don't really have currently in use. They are not in the existing RTA plan so much, but we think it's really an important part of any future plan. And these are the demand side solutions. So it's really talking about how we, as each individual users of our mobility system, interact with the roadway. The distributed routing, peak load shift, mode distribution. Those are all big words, but what we're saying, and probably you've experienced it before, is we have a rush hour in the morning, we have a rush hour in the evening. If you leave 10 minutes earlier, you can get to your destination 5 minutes faster. So there's ways to encourage people to do that through incentives, financial incentives or otherwise. There's also just opportunities to create maps so that people are aware of those route choices they make and how they affect our system. The center set of solutions has to do with how our traffic operations work. So we talked about that you need the infrastructure to speak to each other. So the signals have to be connected. You have to put a lot of effort into timing plans, coordination, adaptive signaling, just everything to optimize what we have already. And then the last kind of set of tools we have, we're calling education, speed control, not using cell phones. So, about 94% of crashes, the National Highway Institute says they are driver related. So we can't engineer ourselves out of those problems. We can't widen a road and hope that it goes away. We can't just add a facility and hope it goes away. We really need to affect change, especially in that safety area where you saw that we were performing not how we wish to be. We're not going towards our goals. We're increasing fatalities. This is where we can dial in and really affect the way people make better choices with our roadway network. So we think that's another really important solution available in an RTA Next. To that end, the county has started the Regional Center for Smart Mobility Solutions, which is going to start to dial into these active transportation and demand management solutions, and having an app that helps people know which routes to take. But it really is a regional effort. It needs regional cooperation and it needs regional funding. And RTA Next is a perfect opportunity to really fund this kind of program that would be revolutionary for the Pima County region. Next slide, Anna. So to our specific proposal, I am not going to walk through the 21 projects that we submitted. I know Mr. Rick Ellis has done that already, along with Paki and Paul, so I will skip that. But I want to talk about what we really think is important for the program as a whole. So improving safety. Every single project, every single effort we do in transportation should have safety in mind. It's not appropriate to be designing a system so that somebody can get home 10 seconds faster if it's causing a death on our roadway. So we really need to think, are we having a balanced system that works for everyone and is safe for everyone? The other item that we really think is important for an overarching vision of RTA Next is that it needs to be flexible and adaptable and resilient. So here's some examples for why that's so important. Just a few years into the RTA, we had the Great Recession, and we are still working to recover, to figure out how do we fund all these projects that were very important, that are very important, but the dynamics of revenues have changed. And I think that it would be short-sighted of us to think that in the next 20 years, we won't face some sort of economic upheaval here locally or on a national level. The other thing is, we've talked about that the iPhone didn't exist when we voted on RTA 1, and now it is our ubiquitous tool that we do everything with. We get our Uber, we figure out how to drive to the store we want to go to, we order our food for delivery. It's really an integral part of our transportation system. So what's going to be that next technology disruptor that we need to be aware of? We don't know. That's the truth of the matter. Nobody really knows what the next thing's going to be. So we need to be adaptable and flexible and realistic that will happen in the next 20, 25 years. And the last thing is, think about the last year of how you guys have used the transportation network. Last spring, overnight, a lot of us stopped driving to work every day and started working from home. And we still haven't figured out what is our new normal going to be. Are we going to go to work every day soon again? Are we going to drive to meetings? Is there going to be a lot more virtual work? Are we going to continue to order our groceries? We don't have these answers. So we need to be ready to adapt to that in our next 20-year plan. So to that end, I will say, with all those things in mind, we did submit 5 categories. Along with our 21 projects, we submitted a letter to the CAC, and that was back last June. So if you need another copy, we're happy to transmit it again. But there were 5 categories that we think are very important to have in RTA Next. The first is maintenance. So we heard Beth say it from Sahuarita. We need a means to maintain the roads we have. To put a price point on it, when we did the calculation to keep the county's arterial and collector roadways at an 80 PCI, so a good PCI or better, getting them there by the year 2030, keeping them at that level till 2040, it's a $383 million price tag. So that's just the county. It's not the city of Tucson, which is going to be in a very similar situation in terms of the roadway network. So that's one area. Technology, I think I've spoken of that already. We don't know what the next disruptor is. but we know that we can leverage technology to make our roads safer through education campaigns, to be more functional through distributed routing and incentive programs, and to make all of our signals work better together. Livable streets, some of you may know them as complete streets or 880 streets. It's the concept that all of us that live here in Pima County use the roadway. So my 8-year-old third grader should be able to walk somewhere with, say, his 80-year-old grandparent, get ice cream, go to the library, go to the park. Not everything needs to be designed with the automobile in mind. And this is a great way to get the automobiles off the road, to make it safer. It really builds that sense of community, public health, all of these things that should be near and dear to our hearts. Another category is our all-weather roads. I spoke of that already. In the county, we have about 20 roadways that close every single year. These are spot improvements. They would be, infrastructure improvements. They should consider all of these things like safety in those designs as well. But we think that's an important category. And I'm sure some of the other communities also have roads that suffer during the monsoon season. And then the last category we put in was public transit. There's, of course, a huge social benefit to having a robust transit system. It allows mobility and access to employers for much of our population, and we can make it better. Again, technology. The Suntran and the city of Tucson have already done a lot in terms of having apps to pay for your tickets via the phone, know when to expect your next bus, but we can extend that to more areas of the county, which would be really important for access. So that is our presentation. I'll turn it over to you all if you have questions for Anna or myself.
Thank you both. Great reminder of the things that you gave to us last year, and the updates are helpful as well. Any questions from the committee? Carolyn?
No,
Having trouble
not really a
unmuting?
question.
There you go.
Yes, always. Thank you, Anna and Catherine. That was really refreshing to hear. So thanks for going over all those. The only question I have, because the committee has been struggling with it, is as far as technology, and you said on a couple of occasions, we don't really know what the future is going to look like. So how do you foresee technology as a category in the RTA, if that's what you're suggesting? Should it be like a pot of money that remains flexible? We've had the debate about, the voters need to know what they're voting for. So, but on the other hand, the future is really unclear and technology is changing fast. So what is the county's thoughts on that?
Catherine?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I think that there is a place for it being a category in terms of getting all of the signals communicating on the same type of network, fiber, or whatever it is. That's an important component of it to get that ITS infrastructure talking to each other. I think there's also a home for it being funding this mobility app that would incentivize, educate the public on how to get the best and most out of our system that we have, where Broadway's under construction, let's not route people down Broadway. Let's encourage them to use 6th. And then when downtown Links is clogging traffic, let's encourage them to use another route. So things like this that can respond in real time and that we have a little bit more control of locally, I think that's a home for it. But then I think to the broader picture of what does it mean for a corridor project? In 10 years, if you have a lot of success with getting these signals talking to each other or getting people to use a different route, you may not need that 6-lane facility you thought you needed today. And those are the things where we need to build the flexibility to scope the project at the time you're implementing it, instead of being so married to what you thought the right project was when you voted on the plan or when you created the plan. So I hope that answers your question. It's not one place, it's everywhere.
Yeah, no, we're struggling with it, but yeah, thank you. And thanks for, I really like where the county is going. It's a refreshing change from the past, I guess, is another thing I would say. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Very good. Ted Maxwell.
Yeah, really great presentation. I appreciate it. I got a lot to think about. And congratulations on the move of the roadways. I've got a couple questions on the rating and just trying to understand the system, because obviously comparing apples to apples is really important. So versus the PCI versus the PACER, I guess, are the two techniques of rating the roads. And obviously you just shifted how we're looking at them at least in the unincorporated portions of Pima County or throughout Pima County. How does ADOT, what system do they use? And then the municipalities, is everybody on the same system when it comes to rating those roadways? And then just a quick follow-up to that is, that rating you shared with us today, is that just for the arterials and the feeders, or was that for all roadways, including like neighborhood roads?
So let me answer your second question first. So that rating is for all of our roads in unincorporated Pima County. It's all the arterials and all the local roads. And the local roads were the ones who had the oldest rating, the old PACER rating. Those were the visual ratings. Those are the ones that had the oldest rating. And we had never made any kind of investment to get a new rating since like 2010, 2011. So that rating is in. And then the 64 that I showed for this year will be at the end of this fiscal year. So our program is assuming that those roads will be, that we're working on right now, are complete. So that'll be at the end of this fiscal year. I don't know off the top of my head which rating ADOT uses. So I don't have that answer, but I do know that the cities and Town Marana, and I'm not sure about Sahuarita, but they use a different kind of rating, more of an OCI instead of PCI. But one of the things that we've talked about, we have a, what is the name of the pavement group, working group, Catherine?
It's the roadway management system, I think, pavement management system group.
It's a regional working group, and that's a great opportunity for all of us to share what we've been doing. Like I said, we used a very technical van that drove all our roads, and it took them, several months to get the rating, but at the end, we got a PCI for all of our roads. And we could all pull our resources together to do that for the entire county and all the jurisdictions every few years, every so often. We would get these ratings continuously. I think that's a great resource to use to make sure that we're all on the same base.
Absolutely. I appreciate that answer, because I think that's going to be key, especially as we're talking maintenance and other issues moving forward. I think one of the challenges we're facing, you can still see the areas of this county that are growing, and they look at transportation needs, at more at roadways, whereas you've got the city and obviously portions of Pima County too, and a lot of the other, census designated population areas as well that are already more filled in, and they're thinking more towards the living streets and the maintenance and the mobility issues. So nobody ever said that putting together this plan was going to be easy. There's a lot of conversation still to happen. So thank you. I appreciate all you've shared with us today.
Thank you.
Jamie.
Yeah, Anna, and thanks for recognizing the fact that Corona becomes an island when it rains. That makes it really difficult for us to get our ambulances down there to save lives. So I appreciate that, and the need that Vail has. And I also want to thank you for the idea of technology. I think this is kind of a innovative way to go. I think this has happened in other cities, and I really like the direction the county is going with this. So just thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Thanks. Dale.
Yes, I'd like to say I really like your several of your categories. Obviously, I made some comments earlier about maintenance, and I think that's a critical issue going forward. I like to see the technology issue in here. As somebody who's been around transportation issues in Tucson for 30 years. I've been through the creation of the technology of the signals that are way outdated now. And it's something that needs to be recycled and updated and recognized as its importance as a category going forward. So I really like to see that in your categories. And obviously the livable streets is a real issue of how it fits into the plan. And it's going to be a major issue with the city of Tucson's proposals, I'm sure. But I'm glad to see it in your concept too. So I like it. It's a good place to start.
Thank you.
Terrific. No more questions? That was, I guess, too thorough of a presentation.
Well, we thank you everybody for the time to do that, and we'll leave you with the thoughts that Catherine had on ours for being flexible, resilient for the program as we move forward.
Thank you.
Hear, hear.
I can stop sharing somewhere.
Oh, and by the way, I wanted to acknowledge that there is now a director for the regional center that was just announced. I read in the paper, and wondered if you could give us just a 30-second overview of how that center would operate and what, if any, either control or involvement Department of Transportation would have, as well as some of the other departments and agencies around the region.
So yes, as you saw, we did hire a director for our Regional Center for Smart Mobility Solutions. He is a gentleman, Michael Medina. He'll be joining our area. May 17th will be his starting point. And as we explained, this is a regional center that we wanted to. It'll be the starting point of the mobility on demand, the platforms, and the education, the big education that we need to get to all the users of our roadways. But this is a regional. We all talk about that the jurisdictional lines are invisible to most of the motorists. So, and that's just a fact of life. So we want this center to be regional, and we are reaching out to, once we get it really started, we're going to reach out to all the jurisdictions to share with them what we're doing, to see how we can connect, to see, and not just connect our equipment and our infrastructure, but connect our thoughts and ideas and how to communicate, how to educate, how to do everything. We want input from the other jurisdictions involving this. And as soon as Michael gets here, we've talked to him, and we've kind of joked that he gets to be the startup of this. You know, we hired him, we have the funding in place, we'll find a location for him. We established a logo for the center, and the rest is up to him to start getting his team together and then starting to reach out to the jurisdictions.
Nice, thank you. Carolyn, did you have another comment or question?
Yeah, just to follow up. Oops, am I muted? No. I'm unmuted. Okay, I just had a follow-up question about that. That's the regional center is very interesting. And I guess it's more of a, I don't know if it's a question for the county or for Farhad. If it's truly regional, wouldn't it be better being housed in PAG? Have you guys talked about that?
Sure, I'll be happy to tell you a little bit about the conversations we've been having with the county. So as you can imagine, a lot of these are operational issues, and typically, obviously, the jurisdiction that owns and operates the facilities are a lot more involved in operational issues. And specifically from a liability perspective, we want to make sure that owners and operators of the facilities are the ones that are involved in the conversation. Obviously, we'll be at the table as well, and we'll support where we can, but our main role obviously is mostly on the planning and financing side, and the operation is really on jurisdictions because of the ownership and the liability issues.
Good, thank you. All right. I think one last thank you to the county and to the towns of Marana and Sahuarita for great presentations today and the opportunity to get to know more about your plans and how they might fit with an RTA draft plan. Our last real item on our agenda is any future agenda items that committee members may have. Just a reminder that these are simply for our use to look at future meetings, not to establish any communication or any discussion at this time. Okay, I see a couple of hands. Mel is the first one that I see.
How will the proposed new infrastructure funding change or give opportunities for us as we look at projects?
New infrastructure, are you talking about federal or?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Dale.
I was going to ask the same, maybe a little different way, but the bottom line is I know that it's formative at this point, and it's a long ways from being anything that's actionable. But you know, some kind of updates as this develops, I think would be a good item to have on the agenda, or because I'm sure it's going to evolve as it goes forward. So, but get some kind of an idea of what that would impact, and obviously one of the things would be whether our representatives for Arizona can get the Sonora Corridor in there as a funded project and get funding in it as part of that, as well as the potential additional funding for things like the interstates. Clearly, this state has got an uphill fight to maintain and improve the interstates as necessary. And I think we're seeing that, and they're not proposing any funding for the updating of the intersections in Marana. And so any ongoing involvement in that updating would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Good comment. All right, any other agenda items that people would like to get on the list? We're maintaining this list of suggestions and dropping them in as we can during our upcoming meetings, and we'll report back to you on a regular basis about that. Hearing no other comments, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Dale Calvert.
Thank you, Dale.
I'll second. Ron Hill.
All right, thanks, Ron. All right, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Too bad. We are now adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Great meeting.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Paki.